All right, what's going on, tech and data nerds? I wanted to do the next part of the WNBA game analysis. And right now, the only data, just want to put a disclaimer, the only data that's loaded is Asia Wilson's 2025 regular season games. But anyways, so this is the Tableau dashboard that I have so far. Um, excuse me, basically what I was looking through right now is looking for features that would basically kind of that stand out between like when they lose versus when they win. Also just wanted to call out like Asia is a really great player, and like just going through her numbers, like I'm just like blown away. But she's a great player. I'm just gonna give you guys some of the analysis that I've done so far as the visual. And then in the next video, I'll show you guys the actual sequel that I worked on as far as like coming up with this same analysis in Postgres. So just overall, this is again, guys, this is just the 2025 regular season games only. So there are wins versus losses. So they win about 74% of the time. I think they played overall 38 games and they won 28 of those games. So that was shout out to them. I looked at the team. So these are the teams that defeated them the most. So like basically these four teams are all, it's like a four-way tie. They beat them two times. I also noticed that any team that beat them twice, they beat them twice away. Nobody beat them two times at home. But this is like what I wanted to like dial into a little bit more. Like of the teams that beat them, like did I notice anything significant with like some of the features that was different between the games that they lost versus they won, specifically when it comes to Asia's performance? But anyways, here are the teams that beat them the most, which was two times. So the Seattle Storm beat them twice. The New York Liberty beat them twice. The Minnesota Lynx beat them twice. And the Indiana Fever beat them twice. The Washington Mystics only beat them once, and the Los Angeles, that's a lost. The Washington Mystics only beat them once, and the Los Angeles Sparks beat them once. The rest of these teams, they never lost to them. So these are like the teams that I wanted to like look into a little bit more, just to see like what was going on with those games as far as like Asia's performance. So the first thing that I noticed, I'll just go in order. So if we look at her average points, so first of all, just like pointing to the fact that Asia's a beast, she's averaging around 23 points a game. And I just want to call that out because if you look at her turnovers, she's only averaging around like close, not even like almost two turnovers. And like look at her field goal percentage. Like her overall field goal percentage is around 47%. And she's getting around like almost close to 10 rebounds. And again, this is just the regular season games. Like shout out to Asia. Like just shout out to Asia. All right, let's get back more into this. So if we look at like basically like I was looking at bars that are seem to be significantly different between like the wins and the losses. So the first one that I'm looking at is the Los Angeles Sparks game. So when they lose to the Los Angeles Sparks, so Asia is only she averaged 13 points. That's that game. It was only one game I think they lost to them. So she scored 13 points, which is, significantly lower than her. I guess I shouldn't say significantly unless I actually like do the mathematics, but she is shooting at least like what 10 points less than her average when they lose. Versus when they won, she averaged around 30 points. This is also a call out here. So remember that the Minnesota Lynx, they're a team that actually beat them twice. Look at this. So they hold her to around 12 and a half points when the Aces like lose to the Lynx versus when they win, Asia scoring around 31 points. Now I also want to call out in general, the New York Liberty tends to hold Asia to fewer points. So I definitely think that probably has something to do with the winner they pull off. So just in general, she scores fewer points than her average. Her average is around 23 points. When she's playing against the New York Liberty, she's only averaging 16 and a half points when they lose, and around seven, so it's around the same. She's averaging around 16, 17 points a game when they're playing against the New York Liberty. Meanwhile, her average is around 23 points. So the New York Liberty like are holding her to like, fewer points. So that might explain part of the explanation of how they're able to defeat them. This is a big one too. So if you guys look at the that was the Liberty. If you guys look at the links though, this is one of the ones again where there's a huge point differential. When they lose to the Minnesota Lynx, they hold Asia to like 12 and a half points, right? That's more than like 10 points less than her average. Her average is around 23 points. When they lose, when the Aces lose to the Lynx, they're holding Asia to around 12 and a half points. Meanwhile, when they beat the Minnesota Lynx, Asia's averaging around 30 points. So very similar to what's happening with the Spark. So her points, like how many points she scores, definitely seem to make a difference. Like I said, whether they win or lose when it comes to the Minnesota Lynx in particular. Like I said, like the New York Liberty in general hold Asia to fewer points. So she's only averaging only. I would just say because she usually averages 23. She's only averaging around, like I said, 16, 17 points when they play against the New York Liberty. This one also, so they never lost to the Phoenix Mercury, at least in 2025 regular season. So the Seattle Storm, here's another one. So the Seattle Storm, when the Aces lose to the Seattle Storm, they're holding Asia to around 17 and a half points. When again, so she's averaging around 30 points. So like when they beat these teams that have when they beat these teams, Asia is scoring around 30 points, right? So she scored 29 points here when they beat the Seattle Storm versus they held her to only around like 17 and a half points when they lost to them. So let's see. Same situation with, like I said, with the Lynx. She scored around 30 points when they won. Same situation with the Sparks. So anywho, I just want to call that out. And let's see, with the Mystics, the point differential isn't as big for losers to wins. So when they lost, I think they only had one loss. They only had one loss to the Washington Mystics, and she shot around 22 points. And when they won, she shot around 25 points. There's still a difference, but they're just not. You see how like there's a bigger. So with the Lynx, the Sparks, actually those are the two ones that are like, and the Seattle Storm. Those are the ones where it's like the difference in how many, like there's a bigger difference in how many points like Asia scores and like the outcome, and not whether they lost or whether they won. There's not as big of a differential here as far as the New York Liberty goes. So like her points aren't that different when they win or lose against the New York Liberty, sorry. But like I said, they hold her just in general to fewer points. Now let's look at rebounds. This is something else that I really noticed. So if we look at, for example, the Indiana Fever is another team that beat them two times. Now, Asia is averaging 9.97, so almost like 10 rebounds. She's averaging almost 10 rebounds. When they play against the Indiana Fever in general, they're holding her to fewer rebounds. So it seems like they're doing a better job of keeping her off the glass. Now, when they lose to the Indiana Fever, Asia's only averaging around 4.5 rebounds. And even when they win, she's only averaging around 7. So it seems like this team in general does a better job of keeping her off the glass. But I just want to really call this out. So when they lose against the Fever, that is like significant. Like, that's way lower than her average. Her average is around 10 rebounds. So she's only getting 4.5 rebounds when they lose. Like I said, just in general, they tend to keep her off the glass. The Los Angeles Sparks, So yeah, she does have like, like there's a I could see a bigger differential. So like when they beat the Los Angeles Sparks, she's averaging around 14 rebounds, which is above her average. But when they lose to them, she it's not as far away from the average. So she got around 8 rebounds when they lose. Again, in general, the Lynx tend to keep her off the glass more than it seems like any other team outside of when they lost to the Washington Mystics. So they're holding her to around 6 rebounds when they lose to them, and 8 rebounds when they win to them. But just in general, they're keeping her off the glass more than other opponents. Now here's a one that you can see a differential here. So when it comes to the New York Liberty, when they lose to New York Liberty, Asia's averaging around 10 rebounds. So that's just slightly above her average. But let's look at when they actually win though. When they beat the New York Liberty, Asia is averaging 16 rebounds. So that says to me like rebounds actually like really like to me seems like plays a factor in them pulling off the win versus losses. Unlike I said, like when it came to the points, like she scores like no matter if they win or lose, her points are around the same, but her rebounds are different. She averaged 16 rebounds when they won versus when they lost at 10. So 10 isn't even below her average, but it just seems like in order for them to win, she really has to have a big rebounding game. Now, granted, this like each of these teams in the I think at most they probably played a team maybe like 4 times, 3 times to 4 times. So I would like once I load more data where it's like just like from like, I think she entered the league in like 2018. Like once I load more data, I definitely like to see how this changes. So right now, it's just granted, this is just, only a few games, but definitely want to call that out. They never lose to the Mercury, and she averages above her average rebounds here. With the Seattle Storm, there's a little bit of a difference. So she gets just below her average rebounds when they lose to the Seattle Storm. When they win, she's a little bit above her rebound average. Now here's a differential. So when they lose to the Washington Mystics that one time, she only had 5 rebounds. When they won though, she had around 12 and a half rebounds. So that's the reason why I put rebounds on here. I looked at a lot of different factors, but rebounds definitely seem to make a difference. Because these are probably gonna, result in second chance shots, whether she's going back up or whether she's dishing it to other players. Like the like being on the board definitely matters. Let's look at her turnovers. That was another one, right? First of all, I just really want to call out again. If you guys look at how many points Asia's averaging, which is around what 23 points, she's only averaging around like close to 2 turnovers. Man, shout out to Asia. Like to have that many points and that few turnovers, man. I just really want to say shout out to Asia. But let's look at how like it, the one that stands out the most already to me is so she has a much like she got five. That's big for Asia. She had 5 turnovers against the Seattle Storm when they lose. So when the Las Vegas Aces lose to the Seattle Storm, Asia has 5 turnovers. All right. When they beat the Seattle Storm, she only had 2. So that's like, around her average. So now this one was interesting. So when they lost to the Washington Wizards, she didn't have any turnovers. And when they won, she actually had 3. So not really sure about that one. In general, now this is another call out. It seems like the Indiana Fever in general make cause Asia to turn the ball over a little bit, like causes her to turn the ball over more. She's just above her average turnovers when they win against the Indiana Fever, but when they lose, sorry, yeah, but when they lose, she has around 4 turnovers. So she has around like double her average turnovers. So that could probably factor into, the win and loss. In general, she doesn't tend to turn the ball over much against the Minnesota Lynx. She didn't really turn the ball over much there. Same situation with the Los Angeles Sparks. She doesn't really turn the ball over much. Um and she turns this it's around her average. This is like the biggest factor here. So I don't really know what was going on this these two games because they lost to the Seattle Storm in the regular season two times, and she averaged five turnovers. So I don't know if it was just like an off game for her or if they like had some sort of set that really made it difficult for her. But that was the one that like I said, really stood out. And in general, like I said, the Indiana Fever tend to cause her to turn the ball over a bit more when they're playing against them. Um, Field goal percentage. That was another one. So let's look at her field goal percentage. So again, like she's averaging around 47% from the field. Now this is the one that really stood out to me. If we look at the let me move myself out the way. If we look at the field goal percentage for when they beat the Lynx versus when they lose against the Lynx, look at her field goal percentage. So her field goal percentage is around 40% when they lose to the Lynx. When they win, her field goal percentage is 86.7%. So her field goal percentage is way, way above her average when they beat the Lynx. I haven't seen many of these games. I need to. This is making me want to go watch it, but to me, this is like one of those factors. Like she shoots way above her field goal percentage when they defeat the um the Lynx. Let's see. Like look how consistent she is. She's shooting like around her average most of the time, like her field goal percentage. Like look how consistent she is. Let's see. Now this is a game. I think that was like one game where I don't know what was going on. I think this was the game where she only played like 14 minutes and she only had like 3 points. This is probably the game. I don't know what happened that game. I don't know if she got like injured, got pulled out early, but I don't know what was going on with that game. It was earlier on in the season too. I think it was like in July, I want to say. July, August. It was early on. I think this is that game because this is the one loss that they had against them where her field goal percentage is only 16% here. So that was significant. When they beat them though, she's averaging around 63%. This is the one that I said stood out the most to me. Now, in general, she shoots below her field goal percentage against the New York Mystics. Oh, sorry, the New York Liberty. I'm sorry. So when they lose, she shoots around 25% from the field, and when they win, she shoots around 21. So like the difference in when they win or lose, like her percentage isn't that different, but just in general, she tends to not shoot as high of a percentage. Like, that's only like around like that's like what half of what her usual percentage is against the New York Liberty. So it seems like they make it more difficult for her just in general. Like yeah, her average points um she has around the same turnovers. Her rebound, okay, she tends to rebound against them pretty okay. But yeah, it seems like though they make it more difficult for her shooting wise. So I'd be interested to look more into their roster. That was like the biggest call out as far as the field goal percentage. This is around the same. So she's at like 51% and 40. This is like around her average. Just in general, yeah. So that was the biggest call out. Let's see, the Indiana Fever. This is still around her average. In fact, she actually shot a little bit better when they lost than when they won. So these were the two biggest call outs to me as far as the field goal percentage. Again, what I was really looking more into was the games that they lost, like which of the features seemed to like did I see a big differential between the losses and the wins? So this is the visualization. I have like more. So there's like the game percentage. The dashboards that I applied are like the ones that kind of like stood out the most to me. This is her points played. Like I said, I didn't really include ones that I didn't feel like there was like a significant difference. I mean, she did play fewer minutes. She's averaging around like 30, like 31 minutes. Like, I just want to call that out too. That's a big deal. Like, that means she's really playing the full games. Like, she's averaging 31 minutes. Um, and I don't know. It seems like she plays a little bit less against the Lynx. So, but that wasn't super significant. We already looked at the point differential one. Again, like definitely notice a big like I said, like this was the biggest call out to me as far as the points go. Like them holding her to around 12 and a half points. When when the Aces lose to the Lynx versus like when they win. Let's see. Turnovers, we looked at that. Like I said, in general, she tends to turn the ball over more against the Indiana Fever. And this one, yeah, I don't know what was going on that game. I'd be interested to look into that game. The games where she had like she said, I don't know if like because this is the average of like 2 games that they lost against the Seattle Storm. So I want to look more into the data to see if there was just like one game in particular that she just had way more turnovers. But let's see. We looked at rebounds as well. Like I said before, just in general, the Lynx tend to hold her to fewer rebounds. And again, like this is where I noticed the biggest differential. Like when she rebounds the ball well against the New York Liberty, they have a they win. Like I said, this is above. She's averaging around like 10 rebounds. So when she went and got 16 rebounds, that like her like when they win against them, she's averaging 16 rebounds. She rebounds, wow, around 16, wow, around 16%. So she gets around, sorry, around 16. She gets around 15 to 16 rebounds against the Mercury. So this is one of the teams she rebounds really well against. Same thing, or let's see. Yeah. So this is one of the ones where I notice a big difference in if they lose or whether they win, her rebounds. And again, same thing with the Los Angeles Sparks. So when she rebounded, when they lost, she only had around 8 rebounds. That was one game. And when they won, she had 14. And again, like I was saying, the Indiana Fever and the Lynx tend to keep her off the glass more. So I'd be interested to look a little bit more into their roster. This is one of the ones I didn't put there. So her field goal attempts. Um, so she's averaging around 16 field goal attempts. I didn't notice that huge of like this one is a pretty significant one, but we already looked at this. So like the Seattle Storm, they're holding her to fewer field goal attempts. So when they lose, Asia only got around 11 field goal attempts. When they won, Asia got around 24 field goal attempts. Um, and she has more field goal attempts. She's above average here. When they lose, saying okay, so like I was saying, they tend. I think that they make it tougher for her. The Lynx, the Liberty. Let's see, field goal makes. I looked at the percentage, so I'm not gonna go too much into this. We already see these differentials. This is a pretty big differential though, against the Lynx. Free throws. Oh, that's one I really want to call out. She's a good field goal shooter. Let's go to her percentage. She's shooting around. Is this her field? No, what's her free throw? I wanted to call out her free throw percentage because she shoots well from the free throw line. Here it is. Look at this. Look at her free throw average. Her free throw average is 87%. That's crazy. Shout out to Asia, man. And look how consistent she is. The only differential I see, this is like the worst that she shot, 72%, and 75% against the Seattle Storm. Like 72% is like her shooting poorly from the free throw line. Look how consistent she is though. So and then she doesn't shoot many threes. That's the reason why I didn't really put that in. yeah, I think that is all, guys. And in the future, like I said, I just want to add in more data in here to just give a better analysis. This is what I've observed so far. I also want to give a disclaimer that I wanted to like spot check again the numbers because I actually manually recorded these numbers. And in the future, as long as the WNBA allows it, I want to actually just like scrape the data to like cut down on the possibility of human error. In the next video, I'll show you guys some of the SQL statements that I used before I even created the visualizations to just like practice coming up with the same information, but just like in actual SQL. So I'll show you guys that in the next video.